Welcome back to Finnish Made Easier. Today we're going to be talking about conditional verbs. This may be something that's a little bit less familiar, but this is essentially when something is maybe more conditional upon something else. In English, usually we use the word would. So if I was to say like, I would try, or I would come if, or even if I want to say like, would you like to come, or anything like that. A lot of times when we use the word would, it's when we'll use conditional in Finnish. Yeah, sometimes it's like, I would, if something. So that's kind of why we call it conditional, because it might be conditional upon something else that's happening. I would come if you came. Things like that. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about how we form it. Then we can get into a little bit of how it's used when we do the examples. But let's just get right into it. So with conditional, this one's going to be kind of similar to past tense in some ways. But we have a few steps. The first one is we're going to find the stem. Second step is we're going to find the conditional stem, and the third step is that we're going to add an ending just like usual, the same endings as always for like mina, sina, with the N and the T, things like that, same endings as always. If you're not familiar of how to find a normal stem, I would recommend watching my videos on verb conjugation before watching this, and then this will make a lot more sense. But yeah, the way we're going to find the conditional stem, just like with past tense, if you've seen my past tense video, we changed all the stems to make an I. The reason this one's going to be kind of similar is because these ones are going to change to be like ISI. And so a lot of them are kind of similar rules, but this one's a lot simpler. So we're going to have kind of these 4 rules here for finding the conditional stem. So like I said, you always find the normal verb stem first, and then we can find the conditional stem, and then we can add the ending. A nice thing about this is they're all going to end in ISI. S doesn't soften, so we don't have to worry about softening at all for conditional. So very convenient. So that's our first ending. Let's do if our stem ends in E. And again, these are all going to be vowels because all stems have a vowel. So, but our first one's if it ends in E. So like if we have the word lukea, the stem of lukea is luke because it's a vowel A, we get rid of the A. So lukea, luke. What we do if it ends in an E, kind of similar to past tense, is we're going to drop the E and then we're going to add ISI. So lukea, luke, we just drop that E, add ISI, so it goes to lukisi. So if I want to say I would read, I can just add an N onto the end of there, lukisin. Or if I want to say we would read, I could say lukisimme. And again, we don't have to soften the K or anything because since it's conditional, this S is actually what's at the end, not the K. So when we add it, S doesn't soften. So as easy as that with all E's. The next one is I, kind of similar to before. I doesn't really change. However, since we're adding kind of ISI, we don't add another I. We just use the I that's already there. So for just I's, we just add SI. So like oppia, this time is oppi. And then it's just OPC. So we still get this ISI here, but we only really add the SI. You could think about it if you want that you take away the I and add an ISI to make it similar, but whatever works for you, that's just how it is. We just add an SI onto here. So oppias to learn. If I want to say you would learn, I could say opisit with a T at the end because that's the correct ending. So find the stem, find the conditional stem, add the ending onto the end. Pretty easy. This next one is when we have 2 vowels that kind of make one sound. So this can be things like diphthongs, which are 2 vowels that make one sound, like I have here sue. This Y and this O with the dots make one sound. It's not like it's like one sound. Or if I have like 2 A's, for example, like huoma, the A's just kind of make one sound together. This one can maybe be sometimes kind of hard to know, but you can know if it's 2 A's, it'll always follow this. And if in past tense, it would kind of follow the similar rule, then you'll do it too. So I'll tell you what the rule is we'll get rid of the first vowel, drop vowel 1, and add ISI. So basically the exact same as the vowel in past tense. We just drop the first vowel and then add ISI instead of just an I. And so if it would do that in past tense, it's probably going to do that now too. The only thing is there's going to be a few more that follow this, because you might remember in the past tense video, if it was a vowel TA verb from the beginning, we could take a shortcut. That shortcut doesn't work here. So like this vowel TA is actually still going to just follow this rule. Huoma, huomai, see. Besides that, if it doesn't follow into one of these rules, we're always just going to add ISI. Everything else, add ISI. So if we take a word like puhua, the stem is puhu. Not an E, not an I, not two vowels. So we just add ISI. Puhuisi. This one, haluta. Halua, it is two vowels, but they kind of make separate sounds like halua. They're different syllables, halua. And so again, we just add ISI. Whereas with this one, like suera, the stem is sue. That's just sue, one syllable, which so we know that those are making one sound. So we get rid of the first vowel, add ISI. This one, huoma, like I said, two A's will always follow this. It's obviously making one sound. So we can get rid of that first A and add ISI. So huomaisi, suisi, but haluaisi. So it's pretty easy. You just check if it falls into one of these three rules. If not, you always just add ISI to whatever you have. So pretty nice. Now let's get into a few examples, and I can show you really more about why this is so useful to know. All right, I switched up the board a little bit, but before we get into our examples, I want to explain one more thing with conditional. An interesting thing is, like I said, when we're using these sentences, like I would come if you came, they form them a little bit differently in Finnish than we do in English. So for some reason in English, when we use kind of a conditional sentence, we put the first one in kind of a conditional form, I would come if, and then we put the second one in past tense. So like I would come if you came. We don't really mean it in past tense, but we say it in past tense a lot. I would come if you came. But in Finnish, they form it kind of differently. They don't do conditional in the past tense. They do conditional and then conditional again. So it would be something kind of sounding like, I would come if you would come. So if I put that in Finnish, the word for to come is tulla. The stem is tule, and then the conditional stem would be tulisi. So we could just say tulisin, jos tulisit. I would come if you would come, instead of saying like I would come if you came. So be careful with that. If you're ever trying to translate sentences from English to Finnish, you gotta be careful about this, because if you said tulisin, jos tulit, it doesn't sound super great. So make sure that you're putting them both in conditional if it's sort of a conditional sentence. But that being said, let's do some practice sentences to practice putting the words in these and kind of see how this works. So another sentence I put here is, if you left, we would go. So we have lähteä and mennä. We have I would help. I could if we walked. An interesting thing about this one is could is really just, can, would. Like I would be able to is the same as could. So we can use the word voida. This last example I have is would you bring? And the reason I put this one is because oftentimes conditional is also used to just make a command kind of a little bit softer, just like would you bring some cake or something, I don't know. But if you put it as a question, then it also just makes it a softer command. We put it in conditional and as a question. If you don't know how to use ko yet, then that's okay. I'll explain this one. But now that you have that background, you can try solving these on your own, translating them on your own. But if not, I'm going to go through them right now. So let's start with, if you left, we would go. So our words are lähteä and mennä. Again, left is past tense, but we're actually going to change them both to conditional when we're changing it to Finnish. So if you left, we're going to put lähteä in conditional. So lähteä, the stem is lähte. We get rid of the A because it's the vowel A. Then we see that E changes to ISI. We get rid of the E and we add ISI, lähtisi, and then it's U, so we can add a T. And then I guess we can put still the word for if. The word for if is jos. Jos lähtisit. Me. I could say jos sinä lähtisit or just jos lähtisit, but we would go. Mennä. our stem, since it's a consonant, consonant A, we're going to get rid of the second consonant A and add E. And then again, same rule, get rid of the E. Whoops. Get rid of that E, add SI, or ISI. Many C, and then since it's we can do MME. Jos lähtisit, menisimme. If you left, we would go. Jos lähtisit, menisimme. And again, you can add the you and we too. Jos sinä lähtisit, me menisimme. Either way works fine. Next example, I would help. We can do this whole thing with even just a single word. So auttaa, the stem is just auttaa with a single A. And we can look through here, not E, not I, not two vowels. That means we can just add ISI, no other problem. Auttaisi, then since it's I, we can add an N. And again, if these endings aren't really making sense or how we're finding the original stem, I would watch my videos on verb conjugation first, and then this will make a lot more sense. But I would help, auttaisin. Perfect, it's as simple as that. You could say minä auttaisin. I could if we walked. Maybe you're trying to say you could come somewhere if they just walked. You could say I could if we walked. Since I said could is basically would be able to. Voidas to be able to. Usually this conjugates to like can, I can. When we say like I would can, we don't say that. We say I could. So this one, voida, the stem, we get rid of the DA. This one ends in I, so we can just add SI. Even though it's two vowels that make one sound, if it ends in I, it's always going to follow this rule. So it's before that. If it ends in I, we're going to do that. So voicey, since it's I, we're going to add N. You know, voicing, jos, because we have the if. Jos, we walked. And again, this one's in past tense, but when we're translating into Finnish, we're going to put it in conditional because it's this conditional type of sentence. It's kind of like, I could if we would walk, which kind of makes sense in English too, but it's not necessarily how we usually say it. I could if we would walk. So, kävellä, the stem is going to be kävele. Then the E changes to ISI. Kävelisi. And then, since it's we can add MME. Minä voisin, jos me kävelisimme. So, as easy as that. You always just put it in the conditional form and add the ending. Jos lähtisit, menisimme. Auttaisin, voisin, jos kävelisimme. Perfect. Now for this last one, would you bring? This is quite common to say when you're trying to ask someone to do something. They just put it in conditional and as a question. If you haven't watched my video about how to make verbs into questions using the KO, basically you just conjugate it and then add KO. So that's what we're going to do. So let's just put it in conditional first, as in you would bring. So the stem, we get rid of the DA, tuo. That's going to be our third one. Again, it kind of makes one sound. You can kind of think you wouldn't say like tuo, you would just say like tuo, kind of one syllable. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but you'll get more used to them. Tuo, which means we'll get rid of the first vowel and then add ISI. So we get toisi. And then we're saying you. If we were trying to say you would bring, it'd be toisit. But then if we want to get a question, all we have to do is add ko onto the end. Well, that's a kind of separate principle, but if I wanted to say, would you bring, I could say toisitko. And just kind of a nicer thing than saying like, bring this. You can just say like, would you bring this? Toisitko. And it's as easy as that. So if you have any questions still, make sure to leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. And I'll put kind of another condensed version of this in the description as well, so you can kind of look back over it slower. Feel free to go back and watch any other videos or watch this one over again until it makes sense. Make sure to practice on your own as well. But I hope you enjoyed it and we'll see you in the next video. Heippa!